Hey folks, welcome to the another live stream. And today we have a very special guest with us. And again, we are talking about open source. It's a Hacktoberfest is going on, open source month, you can say. So today we having Logan Kilpatrick, and he is a community manager at Julia. And you see in many of his stream. So let's bring Logan on the stage. Hi Logan, how are you?
Hey everyone, how's it going? Happy Monday, and happy Hacktoberfest actually as well.
Yep. So those who are new to the community, Logan, I know those who are a bit active in community, like they know you pretty much well. But those who are new to community, they're just joining maybe through Hacktoberfest or through our community. So can you give small intro of yours? Yeah.
Yeah, totally. My name is Logan Kilpatrick. I'm the community manager for the Julia programming language, and in that role, I get to do a lot of fun things. And one of the fun things that I get to do is talk to people about Julia and hopefully help try to get some folks on board in the contributor ecosystem and such. And then outside of that, I'm on the board of directors at NumFocus, which is the organization that does a lot of the legal and administrative work for projects like Jupyter, if you use Jupyter Notebooks, SciPy, Pandas, also Julia, and a bunch of the scientific machine learning stuff. So lots of open source stuff. I love open source scientific software specifically. So if that's exciting to you, then you're in the right place for today.
Cool. So again, I'm also a machine learning enthusiast. I'm really interested in machine learning, specifically in scientific computing. I'm trying to go through Julia, but I will start contributing also as well. I contributed to Julia in the initial. So let we can talk more on. But again, in every session, I give this disclaimer to all. Please do not spam the Hacktoberfest specifically, because there are many people who just want to make swags out of it. So don't do that. You are killing the open source spirit specifically. So do quality contribution, do add specifically add the values to that particular project. That's what open source is about. So I didn't take much time. Let me bring the Julia's slides of Logan, and let me go back to the stage. And I think so Logan will kill on it. So bye bye Logan, and I'm going back. Yeah.
Yeah, just to echo that, I think from a first principle standpoint in life, you get what you give, and if you're going to go through Hacktoberfest and not give quality input, the reality is you might get a T-shirt out of it, but I always try to think like 2 steps ahead, and what am I really trying to get? Is it just a T-shirt, or is there something beyond that? And I can tell you, from a career and a life perspective, there's a lot more sort of fruitful benefits out there to contributing to open source and developing your technical skills than just a T-shirt. I promise. The T-shirt's a drop in the bucket as far as all the potential upside for you contributing to open source. So with that said, let's dive in and talk about Julia, what it is, how it's going. Kyle is asking in the chat if this sounds extremely low for everyone else. Kyle, I don't know, but hopefully my sound is coming in okay. And if it's not, feel free to let me know. So let's talk again, just because I'm sure that there's folks who are here who don't know what Julia is. Let's talk about for a few moments what Julia is, and then I'll sort of dive into, okay, if you, again, hear what Julia is, it sounds okay, you're like, this seems interesting. I'll give some suggestions on how you can get started learning a language. And I'll also note initially that if you're already familiar with programming, if you're already familiar with a language like Python, picking up Julia shouldn't be too bad. It's, again, very syntactically similar to a lot of other high-level languages with its own nuances like every language has. And then the last part, we'll talk about becoming a contributor. How can you actually, take the pieces that you've learned about Julia and go and apply them and contribute to the ecosystem? And again, there's a ton of different ways that actually manifests itself. So we'll dive into a bunch of the different sort of avenues for contributing, if you will. So I always like to lead off with this fundamental question, which is, why do we need another programming language? And again, I think this is a super valid question to ask, because you have languages like Python, which are sort of high level and used extensively for things like machine learning, data science. If you look at machine learning specifically, which is a super interesting and relevant topic these days, every interesting and highly used machine learning package is written in Python. If you look at TensorFlow, if you look at PyTorch, if you look at Fast.ai is another example of that. All of those are quote unquote written in Python. And I say quote unquote because if you really look under the hood, they're actually written in a language like C++ or C in a lot of cases. They just sort of have a Python wrapper on top of them. So that sort of, when you see that and you start to internalize, okay, why is it that some of these, super well established, highly used packages are actually built that way? Why are they written in a high level language like Python, but being used as a wrapper on top of a lower level language like C++ or C? And the reality is because you have this fundamental problem in computer science, which Julia was created to solve, which is called the two language problem. And again, the problem is that you have high level languages like Python, which aren't fast enough to actually do a lot of things computationally. And then you have low level languages like C++ and C, which nobody likes to program in unless you are the 1% of people who think that pointers are really cool and you like that sort of thing. The reality is, I as a programmer don't really want to have to deal with pointers. I don't think it's that much fun, and it's a hassle, and it can lead to a lot of problems. So that's really where Julia comes in. It has the performance of a language like C++ or C, and it has that high level syntax like a language like Python. So you really get the best of both worlds in that fashion. If we talk about, again, a few of the other things that I think are super interesting, again, we talked about the speed with respect to Julia, but the other piece of it as well is the reproducibility. And Julia is extensively used for scientific computing right now, which is basically just anyone who's using programming to do science stuff, I think is the most general way of putting it. For those folks, reproducibility is extremely important because, let's say, again, if you have some scientific experiment, the scientific experiment is only valid, at least in my opinion, if you can go and share that code and the data with somebody else and have them reproduce the results. If they can't reproduce those results that you've created, it's not really science. It's sort of a one-off experiment that may or may not have worked. But you can't really have a lot of impact unless the science is reproducible. And Julia has a lot of sort of mechanisms built in which allow the language and the code that you write to be reproducible by default, which is really nice. The other piece, again, and I'm biased because I spend a lot of time thinking about and interacting with the community, but the Julia community to me is one of the biggest features of the entire ecosystem right now. If you program in a language like Python or C++ or something like that, I've programmed in those languages, and I didn't feel like I was part of a community. I maybe felt like I was part of like my local community, like at school, where there was other people learning the language, and that's cool, but you're still sort of inside of that bubble that you're part of. Again, what's interesting to me about the Julia community is that it's sort of transcended that normal existing boundaries of who I would be interacting with, the other people that I'm involved with in the community, because the community has some sort of relatively small size right now. Again, you're able to meet people who actually created the Julia programming language, talk to them, hear their thoughts about, okay, why was this done this way? I think that aspect of it is super intriguing to me, and it's so awesome to I meet new people all the time, and I'm like, it's just so cool that they're involved in the Julia community, and I get to meet them and be acquainted with them because we're all using Julia. So it's a ton of fun. And lastly is interoperability, and again, one of the most challenging words that I've ever seen in my life, but it's still an interesting point to make, and that's if you take other languages like Python, Java, R, you can actually put that code inside of your Julia file. And I was just trying this yesterday for the first time, looking at, if folks are familiar with Hugging Face. Hugging Face is is a platform that you can put your machine learning models, and they also have a bunch of other peripheral services and products. But they have an API for you to download models, machine learning models from their website, and it's written in Python. And I was able to use the Julia PyCall functionality to actually just call the Python code that the Hugging Face folks wrote directly in my Julia file. Then I could basically get the model from Hugging Face using the Python code, and then directly, leverage it using some of the Julia machine learning packages like Flux or something like that. So if that sounds interesting, stay tuned for that tutorial or video. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but yeah, so lots of really cool interoperability stuff, and all of these are just a flavor of the reasons why you might consider using Julia. Again, the sort of just to top a few more things off, we didn't mention it yet, but of course Julia is open source. The syntax are very similar to that of a language like Python, and also again, I mentioned before about Julia being used for science, and really it's not just science. It can also be used for, it's a general purpose programming language, so you can use it for anything, but it's extremely well suited for problems with lots of data. So again, if you're involved in machine learning, data science stuff, Julia is definitely a tool that can scale up depending on how much data you have, which is really cool. Looking at a few of the really interesting, and again, I love talking about these two cases just because they're the most interesting personally to me, and hopefully other folks don't think that they're lame. But the Klima project out of Caltech is a climate modeling group that is working to help build climate models that are on the scale of the entire planet. And this is such an interesting problem because, again, if you think about sort of step one to addressing climate change as a problem is understanding, okay, what is actually happening in the environment right now? And truthfully, right now, there's a lot of question as to what is actually happening? Is it, the ongoing quote unquote debate of whether humans are causing climate change, et cetera, et cetera. All of those questions are sort of rooted in the fact that the planet is so big, the environment is so complex. It's really difficult to understand what's happening and what's causing that. So the folks on the Klima project really set out to help address that problem using Julia to build a platform that can scale up to build climate models for the entire planet, which is an ambitious goal, but also I think it'll be super interesting if it ends up working out. The other project that I think is super fascinating is called Pumas.ai. And Pumas.ai is leveraging Julia for 21st century healthcare. And specifically in the pharmacology space, they're building a bunch of different products and services. But the one that I'll highlight today is personalized medicine. And again, this to me is just so fundamentally interesting to think about. If we go to the doctor and we all have sort of similar symptoms and things like that, there's a good chance that we're all going to be prescribed the same medicine, the same amount of the medicine. And if you think about that, it's actually a little bit troubling that that's the case, because again, we're all sort of living a different lifestyle. We're all exercising a different amount. We're all eating different food. We're all a different height and weight. We might all have some different genetic predispositions. So to think about people just being blanketed, given the same sort of amount of a medicine or the same prescription is actually, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And part of what Pumas is doing is working to help build personalized sort of medical treatments for folks based on, a bunch of the different factors that I just mentioned. And again, they're using Julia to solve this really complicated, but also deeply needed problem. So again, it's an exciting project in my opinion. Check it out. Pumas.ai is the link for the website. So hopefully so far, I've been able to convince at least one person that Julia might be worth trying. So if I've been able to do that successfully, and there's one person who thinks that this is interesting, what I might suggest as a next step as far as learning the language and getting started is checking out the MIT course that uses Julia. This course, I think, was done really well with a bunch of the folks at MIT and also a bunch of external folks. 3Blue 1Brown, if folks have seen his YouTube channel before, he actually helped collaborate on this class and made some of the lectures. So again, very interesting project. And if you're interested in the website, computationalthinking.mit.edu is the website, and the website was actually just redone. So should be interesting to see what folks think about this. But again, one of the best ways, in my opinion, to learn the language right now, if this, I think I'll make the caveat that this course is sort of deeply technical. It's heavy on all the different technical pieces about both Julia and also sort of what the use cases for Julia are. So if you're like, hey, this looks like it's a little bit, it's probably 2 steps farther than what I need, and I think that's totally a fair assessment. You can also check out julialang.org/learning. I'd say that there's probably 3 really solid ways of getting started that are mentioned here, and a few that aren't as well. On the left side, exorcism.io is a website where you can actually go and solve Julia problems and receive mentoring from people in the Julia community for free, which is awesome. So I used to spend a lot of time mentoring folks on there back when I had more free time. So definitely check out Exorcism. The other one is the Julia Languages YouTube. There's a ton of great content in there, thousands of videos. So if you're interested in learning that way, check out the YouTube channel. And the last on the right side is Julia Academy. And Julia Academy is our sort of curated set of online courses that are available to the world for free. So if again, you sort of like learning in a traditional classroom environment, which for me personally is sort of what I enjoy the most. I think it's just easier for me to learn in that environment. Definitely check out Julia Academy. It's just juliaacademy.com. But you can find all those resources on the Julia Languages website. So definitely give those a shot and let me know. There's also some good books if you like reading books, but I know people are moving away from that in a certain sense. Cool. So any questions about getting started with Julia, why one might want to use Julia that I can answer before I dive into how folks can actually get started and contribute to the language? I'll pause for a sec to see if anyone has anything good.
Cool. So Logan is not as such question on that end, but people are asking about GSOC specifically. Like Julia is also be a part of GSOC. So is there any tips or suggestions then they can get started with that on that end?
Yeah, I think the fundamental mistake that students make with GSOC is thinking that the time to get involved in GSOC is when the GSOC application period comes along. Like, yeah, there's people who do that, and that might work for some people. But if you want to really cement your slot for GSOC, getting involved now is what you need to do. Go on the website, look at the projects that were a part of it last year, go and talk to those mentors, figure out what it is that they need help with, go and start contributing. I promise that it's so clear. I see it every single year. The students who are already involved in the community, it's a shoo-in. You're almost, I say guaranteed a slot. There's no guarantees in life, but your chance of getting a slot for GSOC is significantly higher if you're already involved in the community before the GSOC application period.
Yep. And just even though I am also a GSOC student this year under TensorFlow, so I just want to say it's not like that I just came over 1 to 2 months before on that particular and start contributing to. I am been a part of TensorFlow about 6 to 7 months back, and I'm still contributing to it. It's because I see many people who joined GSOC after the completion of GSOC, they just left the organization. That is not GSOC is for. If you are connecting with Julia or anything, again, it's on to you if you want to continue. GSOC is not only for like getting paid kind of thing, or you got a kind of a hype of like, yeah, I'm a part of this organization. Yeah, it's good to be a part of, but again, GSOC has a main motivation after the GSOC over, how like you have to continue with this particular org. So I hope so those who are asking on that end. And again, apart from that, if anyone wants to join Julia in terms of like, is there any Slack or Discord server that they can join over it? Any mailing list kind of thing?
Yeah, so we have all of those, and again, I'll just to go back to what you were saying before. I think it's not only that it's not just about, getting the money from GSOC and being affiliated with the organization. It's really, if you think about it, again, going back to what we were talking about before, the benefit for you as a contributor comes from being involved over a long period of time. Just doing one GSOC rotation, sure, like it's going to look fine on your resume as you apply for jobs. Like, people will know that you were part of GSOC, but being involved in the community over the course of, a year plus, that's going to be much more valuable than just having done GSOC for 2 months and contributed 3 pull requests. And again, being able to say that in a job interview, whatever it is, I think is super powerful and helpful. But going back to how to be involved in the community, the Julia language website, there's a community tab up at the top, and then we have Slack, we have Discord, we have an app called Zulip, which is an open source alternative to Slack. So we're everywhere. Whatever the platform is that you think is best, you're welcome to join. Great. Awesome questions. Keep them coming. If there's more questions that I can answer, feel free to drop them in the YouTube chat, and I'll do my best to answer. But let's push forward and talk about.
Yep. Sorry for that. Actually, there's a network drop on my area, maybe. But yeah,
No
there is. Yep. So there is one more question on if I am a machine learning enthusiast, so not talking about as such open source, but if I am is it a good way to get started with any open source repo who is supporting machine learning to get into machine learning research kind of thing through open source? It can possible, or anyone has to go to, maybe if I am an Indian student, so I have to go to US to study for masters kind of thing and PhD kind of stuff for machine learning. So is there any way Julia can help them out on that end?
Yeah, that is an excellent question. And honestly, I think the biggest opportunity for people to learn machine learning and to actually contribute right now is in an ecosystem like Julia. And the reason for that is, if you look at other ecosystems like PyTorch, TensorFlow, it's extremely saturated. There's a lot of people, a ton of incredibly smart people who are doing a bunch of really interesting stuff. And again, what that means for you as a student who's contributing is that, again, in my opinion, at least, the sort of barrier to entry is a little bit higher. Everybody using PyTorch is, done their PhD. They've been using it for 2 or 3 years. So it's a challenge in that sense. But the Julia community, and specifically, I have a slide and I'll talk about it. The Flux ecosystem, which is Julia's deep learning package, there's so many opportunities. And we have an open issue for Hacktoberfest. If you want to contribute machine learning tutorials, that is probably the best way that you can get started in the machine learning space right now. Find a tutorial from an ecosystem like PyTorch, TensorFlow, rewrite that tutorial in Flux. Not only will you get experience writing code, writing Julia, but you'll also have the experience of thinking about machine learning and trying to share the idea with somebody else. And I think that's the most important piece.
Cool. Also, there is one more question related to GSOC only, again, outreachy kind of thing. Is it like Julia is the sponsoring kind of thing on the outreachy, or is there any project that it's in outreachy?
Yeah, that's a good question. We aren't part of Outreachy right now. I think I was just having a conversation about this with the folks at NumFocus, and I'm thinking that we'll likely be part of Outreachy in the next cycle. I think that would be something that's really good for us to do, but we're not part of it right now. We're part of GSOC. We're part of Google Season of Docs, and we also run our own parallel program to Google Season of Docs, because if folks don't know, you sort of give us a number of slots that you want for Google Summer of Code. And Google usually gives you less than the number of slots that you actually say you wanted. So we tend to supplement Google Season of Docs with our own funding to help more students get involved in open source through Julia. So definitely something to keep in mind, and we'd love to see folks applying and getting involved.
Cool. Again, all the links are in the description after the stream. Again, we are updating the links. Maybe you are not seeing right now in the stream right now. because maybe it didn't have access over that. But after the stream, you got all the links are there in the description. You can check them out. Again, all the links of the Logan are in the description. If you have any doubt regarding anything regarding Julia, you can DM him, or again, if you want to join in Julia community also, so you can. Again, after the stream, all the links are in the description. And let me check, is there
We're having some network problems. The other thing that I might suggest for folks is checking out
sorry why it's happening, I didn't know. Maybe StreamYard me, but yeah, I didn't know, because like my internet is perfectly fine, but why yeah, let me see.
Do you want to bring my slides back up really quick?
Yeah, I'm just bringing that back. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. So hopefully folks, again, have a little bit of interest in seeing sort of what some of the ways are to contribute. And again, I'll try to dive through a lot of them, and also try not to talk too much anymore, because I know we're going on 27 minutes, and listening to people talk for a long time is not that fun. So I'll try to hammer home some important points that I think. The first thing is that, especially with Hacktoberfest, especially with getting started for Google Summer of Code, there's multiple different contribution pathways. The first step to being a contributor in a new ecosystem is probably not making a code contribution. It's probably not going into the core Julia language repository and implementing some new, crazy, important, impressive feature. That's just unrealistic. I think even for myself right now, I think that would be a huge stretch for me. I don't even think I'm at that point yet. And I've been contributing to Julia and the ecosystem for years now. So just keep in mind that there's many different ways of contributing. If you go to julialang.org/contribute, there's a bunch of different pathways that are highlighted there. And again, with the hope to show folks, hey, you don't need to just make a pull request. There's multiple ways that you can get started. And again, I'll send you to the website to check out all the different pathways. And this is one of my new favorite quotes, that there's more to open source than code, and hopefully that becomes more and more clear over time. And again, highlighting to folks sort of this idea that I have in my mind of sort of the arc of contributing. And you can see it starts off on the left-hand side, sort of talking, perhaps writing about open source, and then maybe starting to open some issues, taking a look at some of the issues that are there. Perhaps then, doing a blog post, writing a tutorial, something like that. And then finally, at the very end of this contribution sort of arc, which is more like a circle, because it all goes back and starts over again. But at the very end of that is the code contribution. You need not invert this arc and just make the code contribution first. You don't have to put that pressure on yourself. Again, it's potentially difficult to do that. So keep this in mind as you push forward with Hacktoberfest, with Google Summer of Code, all of those things. Break stuff up into small pieces and tackle it that way. So one again, really positive way of getting started with Julia, if you want to watch, literally it can be as simple as watching YouTube videos about Julia. And if you want to get a Hacktoberfest contribution, you can add video timestamps to some of these YouTube videos, which helps us make the videos more accessible for people, and make sure that they're watching videos that are interesting and relevant to them. So this is a great way if you're like, hey, Julia is interesting, I want to find out a little bit more and also knock out some Hacktoberfest contributions. This is a great way, and on GitHub under the Julia community organization, there's a repo called YouTube Video Timestamps, which has all the details if you're interested. The other thing, and talking about machine learning, if you want to help write machine learning tutorials, this would be an awesome way to get your hands dirty with machine learning, get your hands dirty with Julia, all of those things. Checking out github.com/fluxml and then the FluxML website. Aman is asking, how can we get into the Slack community? Please guide to start that. julialang.org/Slack. has a link that you can use to an invitation link to join the Slack community. So feel free to use that. You can also go to julialang.org/community to see all of the different options of joining different communities within the Julia community. The other link that I'll suggest for folks, and this will be my last one because I know we've looked through a lot of different links, but julialang.org/Hacktoberfest actually is a website that some of the folks in the community put together, which highlights every single Julia project which is involved in Hacktoberfest and has open Hacktoberfest issues. So there's a huge breadth and depth of different options here. The caveat that I'll give, and if folks have started contributing for Hacktoberfest, you probably know this already, but people sometimes tag issues with the Hacktoberfest label that may not actually be suited for Hacktoberfest for a first-time contributor. So keep that in mind as you look at some of these projects and some of the issues. Some of the things that people are asking for a contribution might just be wholly unrealistic to get done during Hacktoberfest. So think about that. Also think about whether or not, feel free to ask questions. If you read through an issue and you're like, hey, this doesn't seem like there's enough context here for somebody to actually make this contribution, what you should do as a potential contributor is go and ask a question. Say, hey, I read this. I'm not really sure what you mean by this, or I'm not sure how I would go about doing this. That you're welcome to ask those clarifying questions. It's likely that the issue in its current form isn't sort of verbose enough for somebody to actually tackle the issue. So check out this website, julialang.org/Hacktoberfest. Lots of good issues there. And again, the last piece that I'll sort of posit for folks who are perhaps, again, still on the edge about contributing and specifically contributing to Julia. So I pulled up some quotes here from people. I think it was an article that I was reading about what employers are looking for when they hire students. So when you're graduating from university and college and you're going into your first job, what are the people who are hiring students looking for? And I think these quotes have so many parallels to contributing to Julia, the ecosystem, and also just being involved in open source in general. So self-motivated and excited about technology. I can't think of a better way to highlight that you're interested and motivated about technology than contributing to open source. I think that clearly satisfies that requirement. Offering the fresh perspective, again, this is such a compelling piece for getting involved with Julia. I've had this happen in my own life in interviews and such. I go in, I'm talking to folks and getting to tell them about Julia for the first time and sharing about the ecosystem with them in an interview setting with people who are interviewing me, I think is such a cool experience to have. And I think that people who are interviewing you appreciate this a lot. I think oftentimes we think about interviews from sort of our perspective about like, oh, it's scary and, it's the first time that I'm doing this or what have you. But from the interviewer's perspective, they've talked to a bunch of people. They've sort of heard the same things over and over again. So having a conversation that's different, that's fresh with someone who's talking about some new technology, I think is something that people appreciate. And then again, the last piece, again, doesn't just go for Julia, but for open source in general. Having real world experience and out of the classroom learning is sort of a way that I could define Hacktoberfest or define contributing to open source in general. So definitely keep this in mind, thinking always about how you can leverage these experiences, to further your life and career. So hopefully this has been helpful for folks. I appreciate all the questions that have come in so far, and looking forward to hopefully seeing people contributing to Julia. If you get started and you're like, hey, I don't know where to go from here, send me a message on Twitter, send me a message on Slack, on the Julia Slack. I'm happy to help sort of digest some issues with you and give suggestions as far as what you can do to get those Hacktoberfest contributions in the Julia community. So thanks again for the questions, and I'm happy to answer any more if they come up.
Cool. Again, we have dropped the links in the chat section, so you can check them out. And also Aman has asked, like, it's like, again, we will sharing in couple of moments, how can we get into Slack community. So like, again, links will be all the links in couple of moments, it will drop in the description, so you can join over there. And again, Logan will be there to help you out. Again, if you want to join, again, if you're not in our Discord server, so you can join in a Discord server also. Again, Logan is here, so if you want to get into Julia, like if you love the, again, I'm saying, just go to the project again if you love really love that particular project. That's what I feel regarding whole open source. And I pretty much see, because I'm a machine learning lover, so I'm pretty much see Julia is very near to me on that end. That's why I'm contributing to TensorFlow, Julia, you can say, because they are the community that what I felt is a really, really welcoming community, that what I see. So again, I think so we dropped the Slack server link, so you can join there. I dropped also. So yeah, it will be updated in couple of moments in the maybe in the description. And till now, I have seen there is no more question as such. But yeah, I think there's no more question till now.
A Flux tutorial from you coming into the the repo. I want to see that tutorial. So hopefully I can convince you. And again, hopefully this was useful for folks. And if there's questions, feel free to ping me offline on Discord, Slack, whatever is easiest.
Cool. Yeah, I think so. There is not as such for now. Maybe from my end. Let me see once. Yes, there is no more question. But awesome. Like Logan, can, like, it's like my personal question, you can say. So from like contributing to open source, so can we get as a like maybe again, it's not a technical, it's a non-tech question. Maybe can we get a like maybe like a role regarding
The audio just cut out for me, but I think I know what you were going for. I think the question was going to be about, you know, how to leverage.
Sorry. I didn't know why it's happening this day only. Why my internet so laggy? I didn't know. But yeah, my question is just like, can we get as a community development intern kind of thing in Julia if it needed right now, maybe like through maybe our open source contributions kind of thing. So is that we can get any opportunity through that?
Yeah, definitely. I think again, what's so interesting to me about the Julia community is that there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and folks who are willing to step up and do that work. I think there's so many good opportunities for internships, jobs, all that sort of stuff within the Julia ecosystem. So I totally think that's the case. If folks get started in Julia and decide, hey, this is something that's really interesting, and you want to stick around and do something in sort of a more formal capacity, shoot me a message and I can put you in contact with the right folks. But yeah, I think there's a ton of opportunities for this. And again, there's a lot of work that has to be done. So it's great to get more people involved.
Cool.
But that's all I have. Unless folks have other questions, we can call it a day. And again, if it was great to chat, and hopefully folks found this all interesting.
Yep. Yeah, till now there is no more doubts, and I think so. Again, you can join Slack server, and Logan is here to help you out. Again, yeah, I think so. Now it's better. Maybe I connected to some of the other internet. So yeah, cool. Yeah, cool. Let me see. Yeah, is there no more question again? And if you want, again, if you are in your Discord server and if you want to help anything regarding Julia, again, I am here as a beginner. Again, I am contributor to Julia, so I can help you out on that end again. But Logan is already here over that. So you all the links in the handles of Logan, so you can reach out to there also. And cool. So again, there's a like a not a it's a kind of maybe general question. What type of opportunity do we get in it? Maybe in contributing to Julia. So can you maybe elaborate more on that?
Yeah,
Logan, if you want.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different opportunities, and it really depends what you're looking for. If again you have some specific domain that you're interested in, whether it's machine learning, biology, something like that, I think there's a lot of specific opportunities in those areas. I think again there's sort of more general opportunities as well if you want to contribute to sort of even like helping with the contributing guides in the Julia community. I think that's an opportunity if you want to help, you know, make YouTube videos about topics that are interesting to you. I think there's a ton of opportunities all over the place. So again, it really depends what you're interested in. So if there's something specific that you're like, hey, I don't see this listed somewhere, but it's something that's interesting to me, again, shoot me a message and I can help point you in the right direction. But I think we're gonna end with Aman's question. That was a solid one. And again, thank you everybody for tuning in. I think Kartigi's having internet problems again, so I'll close out the broadcast. It's been great to chat with everybody, and as always, if there's more questions that can be answered, ping me. And looking forward to having folks involved in the Julia community. So I'll see everyone later, and thanks for tuning in.